everybody ample opportunity to ask any questions that you may have here. First of all, let me say thank you all for being here today, taking your time out. This is a very important issue. There's some important stuff that I feel like we need to cover and we need to address in light of some things that have happened here in the last few days, some things that were said. So let me just be very clear. As sheriff, my first responsibility is to protect the rights of residents who call Gwinnett County home. This means enforcing laws that are built to build trust across our communities. This past Monday, we hosted a group of community leaders, organizations, and elected officials here at the Sheriff's Office. Now, this meeting was an opportunity for engagement, and we focused in on many different topics. We talked about immigration. We talked about our stance on 287G. We talked about our cooperation with ICE and the federal agencies, and then the shift in how all of this has shifted since House Bill 1105 has since taken place. Now, our level of involvement with the federal government changed with 1105. Now, however, the Sheriff's Office does not conduct investigations into federal immigration. Attendees was given the opportunity to ask questions, and they were encouraged to state their concerns in the interest of transparency and clarity. We concluded the meeting once there was no further questions, not before. To invoke fear, whether it's law enforcement, leaders, elected officials, is totally irresponsible. We have an obligation as leaders to provide the public with facts and not to promote personal agendas. Our job is to enforce the law, not to invoke fear in our communities, especially after we've worked so hard to build that level of trust in the communities. Our office will continue to work with stakeholders and provide transparency. Now, since I took office in 2021, our mission has not changed, and that is to serve and protect all members of our community, regardless of where they come from or who they are, through professionalism, dedication, and active cooperation within the community, and that has not changed. And we will do that with dignity and pride. So now with that, I'm open for any questions that you may have.
Which organizations were in this gathering, and what was the big takeaway?
We can provide you with a list of, I don't know them right off the top of my head, but we can provide you with a list of everybody that was in attendance, including the elected officials.
So state law does mandate that you work with federal authorities. That's what the bill is about. But what exactly does that entail? Are you with them during raids, or ICE's in law enforcement actions?
No, not necessarily. What House Bill 1105, it clearly outlines certain guidelines as to where we are mandated as local law enforcement officers, as sheriffs, anybody in law enforcement, what that level of involvement will be in conducting investigations with ICE, all right? MOS agreements, those type of things, all right? But it does not specify any tactical or strategic tactics that we use in the enforcement of any laws here in Gwinnett County.
Sheriff, can you explain, Sheriff, post-meeting, what was said that you're referring to, that for those that may not know, that may have invoked fear?
Well, very clearly. There was a news conference that was held directly after we had our meeting here. Marvin Lim and Jasmine Clark got up and stated again that we were not being transparent here in the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office. Now let me add, neither one of those two individuals attended our meeting, and they had invitations to be here. They were invited to be here and has been invited before, okay? I've reached out to other leaders on both parties, even before House Bill 1105 even went into effect, because we saw issues with that particular bill. that was the time to address some of the things that is being said now that is stroking fear out here in the community. We knew 1105 was gonna be a bill that was not a popular bill, whether we like it or not. But at the end of the day, it is now state law, which means that I have an obligation to enforce state law. I don't have a choice. It clearly outlines that you can get fined, when a county can lose funds, or I can subject myself to confinement in jail if we do not comply with House Bill 1105.
Have these new protocols required changes in staffing, training, or technology within your department? What does that look like?
Training, okay, not necessarily staffing, at this particular point, but again, it is a fluid movement with 1105. So, depending upon what moves forward in the legislature, probably in the next year or so, we might have to look at additional staffing. I know that one thing that the bill did not address for us, it put a lot of different mandates out there for us to have to comply, but it didn't give us, any type of an avenue to get additional resources, whether it be money, funding, or personnel.
Sure. How are you addressing concerns from the community members who now fear discrimination or possible profiling?
Mm-hmm.
How do you kind of address that, and kind of how do you work with the community on handling that?
I think my record speaks for itself, all right? I came into this office, man, we provided resources, we put together a whole unit. And that unit was to go into different communities, whether it be the Hispanic community or any other communities of color or whatever, all right? To build that level of trust, all right? We came in not as enforcers, not in law enforcement in a capacity such as, we came in with community engagement. And not only with that unit, we set up our gangs task force, our human trafficking task force, because we understand that a lot of people that are victims of these type crimes are in those communities. So what we wanted to do was make sure, that if there are victims in these communities, where before I came in and under 287G, people were scared to even report crimes that was going on in their communities. What we tried to do is make them feel a level of comfort to say, hey, we got these things going on. We're here to help you. We're not here, we don't care about your immigration status. If you are the victim of a crime, we're here to conduct our investigations and do the best we can to make your community safe. Just like anybody else in any other communities would be expected to do.
Could you explain exactly what is the process for your deputies to do immigration process to report somebody to ICE? Also, some of them have to be deputized, right? Or be general federal agents, right?
I'm not tracking you. Let's try it again.
Deputized.
Okay, start the question again, please. So make sure I answer you correctly.
What is the procedures that the local agents at the jail are following to process somebody who have been to report to ICE?
That, I'm gonna let Chief Atwater answer the procedures of that, but it clearly outlines what our participation is, all right? Our reporting procedures. When do we report? What are we reporting on? Who are we reporting it to, all right? The biggest concern with House Bill 1105, I think, that creates some level of confusion is what is the, our agreements with ICE, all right? Like I said before, we do not have an agreement with ICE to participate in programs such as 287G, okay? But 1105 clearly outlines what the state is responsible, okay? Myself as sheriff is responsible for cooperating with ICE. Now, let me just be very clear for all issues of transparency, okay? Even when I said in the very beginning that I would not participate with 287G, I never said I would not cooperate with ICE. And we outlined very early on, day one, situations as to when we would be cooperating with the federal government. If they came out here, we're not going out doing any type of immigration raids. We're not going up, pulling cars over, looking for immigration, identification, anything such as that, okay? That was never there. But if someone came in and ICE put a detainer on them, they come in under legitimate charges with a warrant, whatever, okay? And a detainer is placed, we're going to honor those detainers, okay? After 48 hours, if ICE has not picked them up, then we release them. So that has been my stance. That's been, for the interest of transparency, that has been day one.
And let's drill down on that, Sheriff, because I think that's where we were kind of like asking the same question, okay?
Mhm.
So basically, you're not gonna find a Gwinnett County Sheriff deputy riding with ICE on something like this. But if ICE picks somebody up
Mhm.
and they have a detainer, they will be here at the jail. So how many people do you have at the jail? How many people has ICE sent here to the jail, sat here for 2 days, and you have to release them?
I don't know, I don't have a number in front of me, but I do know that we do have people, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that we probably have some people in here now that have detainers on them, but there's no one here that has detainers on them past the 48 hours. We're not holding people here, to let ICE or anybody else decide whether or not, hey, we may come get them, we may not come get them. We're gonna stay what is within the confinements of the law.
There is some local agencies has a task force to participate with federal agencies.
Mhm.
Is your office participating with task force with ICE in different counties? Because it doesn't mean like has to be just in Gwinnett County, right?
Well, let's talk about participation, okay? We do not have any organized, all right, task force with ICE, okay? Now, we do have people that are on organized task forces with the federal government, okay? We have forever, and we're going to continue with that, all right? So I can't answer for what somebody else does outside of Gwinnett County. I don't have that information, so it would be irresponsible for me to say one way or the other on that. But I can tell you, if ICE comes in and they're conducting an investigation and it falls within the previews of what we do, okay, to get criminals off the street, then we will cooperate. Whether we want to say, start mixing words and say riding with them, working with them, whatever you want to say, I think the best thing to say is that we will cooperate with ICE according to the law.
I have a two-part question.
Give me one at a time, okay? I'm
Sure.
on.
Okay, so the first question is, how has 1105 specifically impacted your department and immigration protocols? How has it, impacted you guys kind of going forward?
Well, I think I've been fairly clear. I'm not a fan of House Bill 1105, all right? Especially, in areas to where it may be the opinion that we have to do things outside of the previews of what we are elected to do here, especially here in Gwinnett County. Now, one thing that you have seen with 1105 is that the number of people coming in to the jail, okay, on lesser charges has increased. And the reason why that number has increased is because 1105 now says anybody brought into the jail, all right, that information will be turned over to ICE, all right, for them to make a decision on whether or not if they're going to detain them for that 48 hours or not. So when you read a headline that says, Gwinnett County has an uptick on, traffic offenses of people coming in. So when that comes out, it says these people are at the jail. So it gives it's almost like you're implying that the sheriff's office has gone out and we're out here rounding up people on traffic charges and bringing them into the jail, and that's not true. The way that the bill reads is that anybody, so any agency, whether it be Lawrenceville, Swanee, whatever agency, anybody else that's operating here in Gwinnett County, if they have a chargeable offense, they bring that person in here to the jail. Under 1105, that information will be forwarded and a decision will be made at that level on that person.
Sure, thank you for elaborating. And then the second part is, how will your office measure success or progress under this new type of bill?
That is not an issue for us, okay? There's nothing that I need to look at to quantify, you know, if this is good or if it's bad, all right? That's not my job, all right? My job is regardless to who it is, all right? We enforce the law. So, you know, if someone else want to come in, then there are things that we do have to report. We report numbers and stats, but that is not an issue that we base anything on here, all right? Only good thing about those numbers and stats is that if the bill continues moving in the direction that it does, then that could be something that we could look at to get additional funding and resources to make sure that we're still in compliance with state law.
Have you had a chance to talk to State Representative Clark following her comments at the news conference? How did that conversation go?
I've not spoken with her, no.
Sheriff, have people with legal status in the country been detained for more than 48 hours in Gwinnett? Will ICE review their status?
Give me one more time.
Repeat?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Have people with legal status in the country been detained for more than 48 hours in Gwinnett? Will ICE review their status?
So let me make sure I'm clear on what you're asking me, all right? You're asking me if we have detained people here in Gwinnett County past the 48 hours, okay, even after ICE has said they're not gonna pick them up? No. All right, they have to come pick them up.
I think she is referring to somebody who has a green card or another type of
Citizen.
allowances to be in the country, and she's saying citizens probably who are probably Hispanic, and probably she's referring to racial profiling, how the sheriff's office can manage this situation.
In this
Well,
process?
you know, let me say it this way, okay? Look at this law, whether it be 287G, 1105, or any law, okay? It's a tool, okay? It's a tool that's used to keep the community safe. That's the reason why we have laws. That's the reason why we have law enforcement. Now to say, just like with anything else that we've seen in the history of what we do, there are people out here that has prejudices and they have biases, all right? And they will misuse law, they will misuse procedures or anything else to promote personal agendas, okay? That's not just in law enforcement, that's all the way across, okay? And that's what we're seeing here right now, all right? So to say that that doesn't happen, I don't have an answer for that. To say that we're participating in something like that, that is not the case, all right? Not the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office. And I'm not familiar with anybody here, any other agency in here in Gwinnett County, okay, that is doing that type of activity.
We're gonna take 2 or 3 more questions.
Referring to Mario Guevara case, their lawyers, they went to the court and filed a motion to asking to the judge, saying to your office, return their 2 cell phones that were seized at the time when he was booked in jail. Does the sheriff's office has a search warrant on those cell phones, and why the sheriff's office has still those cell phones?
Good question. Those cell phones were seized as part of evidence in the case against Mario, all right? We did get a search warrant. We extracted that information out of those out of the phones according to the search warrant. Once that was done, those phones was placed in the evidence. Now, since those charges has been dropped, all right, there's a procedure, and I'm sure his attorney, as an attorney, understand what those procedures are that he needs to go through, the paperwork that he needs to file with the courts in order to get those phones released. I do not have the authority to release those phones back to Mario or anybody else. That has to come from the judge.
So are you implying that sheriff's office is filing new charges against Mario Guevara?
I did not say that. No, I did not say that. I said we seized that and we got the evidence out of the phones that was pursuant to the search warrant, okay? Now, if something else comes up on Mario, we get additional information on Mario just like we would with anybody else. If it leads to an investigation that leads to criminal charges, we will take more criminal charges. Yes, we will.
So you basically said that The Mario Guevara cell phones, both of them are evidence, are taken as evidence
They
of
were
something?
taken as evidence.
As evidence.
So since the case has now been dropped, it is up to his attorney to file the proper necessary paperwork to get the phones released.
So, did you file the search warrant for this one? All right.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Sheriff, in closing, do you have like a final statement you want to make so that people, again, understand the entirety of your message today?
Yes. My closing statement, I don't want to call it like that because I'm not a preacher, so I don't want to call it a closing statement. But what I want to just make sure that we're very clear on is that I've heard the term, me not being transparent. Okay, we're trying to hide. All right, we're not trying to hide anything. All right, I've been clear from day one what my participation with the federal government is. All right, I've been clear from day one my involvement and my commitment to the community. And I'm going to say the Hispanic community since we're talking about Mario, and Mario is Hispanic. We put a lot of time, resources into the communities to make sure, you know, that we're having those levels of trust. And that's what this is all about, is trust. Do you trust us as law enforcement officers to come in to do our job, to do it fairly, impartial, and without prejudice and bias, all right? That's what we are. When you have people like Clark and Lim, who comes back out and they make statements saying that we're not being transparent, okay? And they don't even take the time and effort and energy to attend the meeting, all right? To me, that's irresponsible and that's reckless, all right? Not getting the answer that you want has nothing to do with transparency. Transparency is you ask a question, we give you the answer. If you don't like the answer, that's not us not being transparent. That just means you don't like the answer I give. I done gave some answers in here today, and I'm sure people in here today are not gonna agree with what I said. But we are consistent with the fact that we said, I've said from day one on in now to today, that we will enforce the law, okay? I don't care what your immigration status is, I don't care where you come from, we will enforce the law, okay? Activity, the way Mario, some of the things that you all have the facts behind that case, that's the reason why Mario came up on our radar. It had nothing to do with his immigration status, all right? If he had been here in this country legally, we still would have done the same thing. So my position on this is this, and I want to make sure we're perfectly clear today, okay? We gave everybody in that room every chance and every opportunity to ask questions. There was a couple of times in there during that meeting, I even sat there and said, one time in particular, hey, I know y'all didn't come in here not to ask me questions. Keep asking questions. We want to make sure that you got all of the information that you're looking for before you walk out of here. We didn't say, hey, we want agreeable information, that we're all gonna come out of here in a level of agreement. We gave them the information, and we did not conclude the meeting until we felt like they said, hey, everything is good. All questions has been answered. Whether you agree with me or disagree, all of the questions was answered, and at that point there was, in my opinion, and my take coming up out of there was nothing else left that would say, hey, he's still not being transparent. So from the contents of that meeting, okay, what I saw in that press conference with those two representatives, that's totally irresponsible, all right? Because to go out and make a statement like that and you were not even here. I question, did you even ask the people that was in the meeting, okay? Did anybody give you anything different? Did anybody say anything different? Or did you just take it upon yourself because you have a personal agenda that you're trying to, you know, you're upset because we're not doing things the way you want us to do, or we're not answering questions the way you want us to answer them? You know, that's not being transparent.
State Representative Clark is running for Congress in Washington. Do you think that has led to that statement at all?
I can't answer for that, okay? I don't know what her personal agenda is or what it is that she is hoping to accomplish, but I'm just simply stating she stated her side, I'm stating my side.
When you said that you will respond all the questions, and this is the last question I have, the Mario
Sure.
Guevara case, is why did sheriff's office wait until 4 weeks to file those charges that they were dropped?
Because that was at the best timing for us to get the charges done. There was no hidden agenda to say, hey, let us go out here and go do anything else. Sometimes, man, in case you might be able to get your warrants quicker, sometimes it might take longer than 4 weeks. In Mario's case, there was no hidden agenda to say, hey, this is what we're doing here. Let's wait 4 weeks, let's do this, any of that. At the appropriate time, all right, when we felt like it was the appropriate time to take the charges, that's what we did. There's no agenda there, okay? It's not. I'll take one more. I know she shut it off, but I know y'all got one more because I want to leave up out of here, give you the same opportunity that I gave everybody else. If you have any questions about transparency or anything else, now is the time to ask it.
If,
Yes,
go ahead.
just to clarify for our audience,
Mhm.
we are in live in Prensaland, how Gwinnett Sheriff Office is working under the HB 1105.
How we,
How you are working under the Georgia State Law, HB 1105.
as best we can to comply as best we can with the law.
So that means that you are not working with ICE.
That is never what I said. We are working with ICE in compliance with the law,
Okay,
okay?
Okay.
Yeah. So let's be clear on that.
Yes,
We are
yes.
working with them, yes. Sir?
Thank you. Let's just say in the event someone gets arrested for whatever charge,
Mhm.
okay, and then obviously they're an immigrant, and obviously ICE comes, picks them up, right? Let's just say in a couple of years from now, 4 years from now, we have new leadership, right, where our country is going to go in a different direction, right? We never know the unknowns. And then that individual comes back here on a green card or this or that, whatever. Would the charges that that individual got arrested on, obviously they're going to, they're going to go to ICE because they're an immigrant, but those same charges on why they were arrested in the first place, why they were stopped,
Mhm.
would that be still enforced if they were to come back and return? Those prior charges, would they be enforced, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but I don't have an answer for that because, one, it would depend upon what those charges are. Okay, it would depend upon what the status and the disposition of that case was at the time of the arrest, at the time that they were deported, and at the time that they come back, all right? So, that's such a question that's a very individual agency, all the way down to their investigative unit to answer those questions there.
Just for the record, can we have you say and spell your first and last name, even though we already have it, just in case for producers and at the station?
Keybo Taylor, Keybo, Taylor, Taylor.
Thank you.
What is a general message for our community, diversity, Hispanic, American, Asian, under these circumstances?
Clear message. I've been a champion for your community, okay? And I think anything that you go back in and you look at what I have done, I have championed your community, okay? We give out book bags every year, we give out food every year. Guess what? Your community is in line getting book bags, they're in line getting food, okay? We have an anti-gang, anti-bullying task force that we work on too, okay? Guess what? Those things happens in your communities, and we're there. So we have partnership in, and like I said, I can't control what people think, I can't control what people believe. I can only control what we do. And over the last 4 years, okay, we have been very active in your community, all right? And what I ask is this, all right? You judge me, okay, based upon what I do, not what you heard, all right? Not what you hear about what we do with this bill. Have I been in your community? That's a yes or no question. Have I put resources in your community? That's a yes or no question. Have we been a partnership with your community? That's a yes or no question. and let the people decide for themselves. Don't listen to this firestroke, okay? Don't get caught up in, trying to, hop a headline, or promote something that is not in the best interest of your community. And let me say, I'm going to continue to work in your community. I don't care about this, all right? It changes nothing for me. Your community needs me, the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office, guess who's gonna be there? We're gonna be there. Nothing changes. All right, this is it. I wanna give Chief Atwater a couple of minutes to come up here, so y'all bear with us, but I do wanna make sure you know that he has additional information. If he does, that he has that opportunity to speak on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Sheriff. I think the Sheriff outlined and, articulated our position very well. There were a couple of questions about operations, so I'll just kind of maybe drill those down a little bit. House Bill 1105, the triggers for which we try to determine who gets the information gets sent to LESC, gets sent to ICE. The House bill is ambiguous. However, the trigger is going to be if an officer suspects that they're foreign born. So that is what the House bill is centered around. So officers on the street, obviously they're conducting investigations. In the course of conducting a criminal investigation, if they cannot determine or believe that they are foreign born, then they are to ask for certain documentation, all right? So we have no control over that from other agencies as they deal with citizens in Gwinnett County. Once they get inside the jail, if they do arrest them on arrestable offenses and they come into our facility, the bill still governs what we do. So we, at that time, have to determine whether we believe they're foreign born or not, right? So if there's a suspicion that they are foreign born, the bill tells us that we have to send information to LESC if in fact they don't have certain documentation or can prove that they are not foreign born or they are foreign born. So that's kind of what we do. We send the information to LESC.
How are deputies trained? Because, for instance, some people say, I look Caribbean, I'm not. So how do you make that determination that are you from here or not?
Sure, that's very difficult, right? So the booking sheet or the booking text that deal with the people that come in our facility, they look at that information. Do they put in there, are you foreign born? There's a question, all right? If there's any information from the officer that comes in that they believe that they're foreign born, did they say that? We ask the person if there's any information that comes from their interaction. So all those things. We also run everybody through NCIC and GCIC. So what comes back off from that? So all those different interactions will result in whether or not we send that information to LESC, which is required by law, House Bill 1105.
You mentioned suspicious to be born in our country. So, what could be suspicious? The accents, the color of skin, because it could be white, that he was born in the United States, is an example, but grew up in Mexico, but his accent is so strong. So, that's suspicious.
You're asking me, do I think that's suspicious?
Yeah, because you said that he was born in another country, that is suspicious.
Yeah. So, again, there's so many different types of scenarios that could happen, right? But if somebody comes in that has an accent, or somebody comes in that, looks a certain way as you just described, all of those things could or could not be considerations. Really, what are they answering in the booking information, and what are they answering in the interaction of the booking process? So it's very simple, Don't let our biases as we're law enforcement officials come into play. Ask the questions, and what documentation do they have? So those things are tangible, not enforced by biases, right? Do you have the documentation that shows that you're not foreign born? And how did you answer the question? And at the end of the day, the sheriff's office doesn't determine federal immigration laws. The sheriff's office enforces House Bill 1105, which is enacted in law. It says send the information to LESC. We send it to LESC because they were brought into our facility for a criminal offense. We're not housing people that the federal government has deemed to be here, illegally or anything like that, as a facility. People who come into the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office have criminal charges. And
So
then-
you are saying
Are
that the
you-
law is forcing you guys to racial profiling people? Because you are saying you were trying to see if it's suspicious to be born.
Let me grab that.
Yeah.
Because that is.
And no,
it looks
that
like
is, that is not what I said at all.
Let me grab that.
Yeah,
I have a question.
Yeah.
yes, it's very.
Let me, okay, all right. Here's the deal, all right. In all of the issues of transparency, there are a lot of problems, okay, with House Bill 1105. A ton of problems with it, okay? I don't agree with everything that is in 1105, all right? And it ties our hands. Like I said very early on in this press conference, people will take this bill, they will take anything such as this and implement prejudice and biases into it, all right? I'm not saying that this is the case, but when you look at that bill, all right, some folks can draw a conclusion and say that that bill was drawn up and that it opens the door for those things to happen, okay? So I'm gonna flip this thing back. I keep saying I have a job to do, okay? I think I've said that a number of times in here. But our state legislators, like Clark, like Lim, they got a job to do too. You don't like the bill, go to work down there at the House and get the bill changed. Put your positions in there, find ways and places in there to where you can cooperate with people even in your own party and across the lines, whether you're Republican or Democrat. Have your input, have meaningful input, and come back and let's clean this stuff up in these bills, okay? You're not gonna get it changed completely, but we can have a better bill that services everybody better, all right? Yes, it does give that position, or it gives that taint that, hey, people are being, singled out, But that's something that we have seen, and that's one of the reasons why I address this is because me being, who I am, I understand that, okay? I understand it completely. So I understand your concerns, and I understand why you feel like you're being singled out, So, but the only way that we address that, how we've addressed that in the history of this country, is by getting legislations against those type of things and getting better bills on the table. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I just got an interview with the superintendent in the huge Gwinnett district schools. So my question is, under current law, the federal government can arrest any undocumented person. Does this include making arrests at the schools also? Is a sensitive zone?
That has nothing to do with me, okay? Once again, we do not enforce federal law, okay? What the federal government says that they can do, whether it's going into a school, whatever, that is not for me to address, okay? We're not doing it, okay? But I can't sit here and tell you what the federal government will or will not do. I have no control over that.
Can I ask, I have a question for clarity here on this, and to the concerns of profiling isn't happening. Can you give me clarity on this? You're not, are you only asking these type of questions if someone is brought to the sheriff's office under some sort of criminal charges? Or are you also doing this when you see somebody on the street? Just approaching somebody
Yeah, the way-
randomly on the street?
Yeah, the way the 1105 reads, and, and I don't want to misquote and get this wrong, but officers out on the street, okay, there are some criteria for them to follow. And I think that that bill says that they will look for immigration status, all right? My part in this, okay, besides what my deputies do out here on the streets, okay, is when they come into the jail, what is reported on them coming into the jail. So if it says we're gonna ask certain questions under that House Bill 1105, then we ask certain questions. If it says we will provide that documentation and that information to the federal government, then that's what we do. But no, it is not where we go out here and say, you know, what he look like, he needs to be asked a question, but she don't look like she needs to be asked a question. Okay? We good? As they say in church, if all hearts and minds are clear?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank y'all for coming. Thank you for your time.